What if Jon Snow didn't come back as himself? What if the Lord of Light dragged him back with a second voice inside, dragon fire under his ribs and northern justice in his hands, like a Targaryen echo of Lady Stoneheart? Light your candles. It's Halloween time, so expect the cold to bite and the shadows to pay attention. It happened fast. Jon crossed the yard at Castle Black with Ramsay's bastard letter clenched in his black-gloved fist, the same letter that brags and sneers in the same breath. Affected by the letter from Ramsay, and believing that at least some of the letter must be true, he announced his plan to march on Winterfell in the Shield Hall.
Let the free folk through, ride south with me, help me take back Winterfell.
Half the watch couldn't stand it, and they wouldn't. The first knife slid in under his ribs.
For the watch,
someone breathed. Another blade.
For the watch.
Bowen Marsh wept as he stabbed him, tears rolling down his beard, dagger in his hand. Othell Yarwyck wouldn't look Jon in the eyes. Wick Whittlestick shook so hard he nearly dropped the knife and then made up for it with 3 quick jabs. The torches hissed. The wind sounded like a saw. Jon tried to call out for Ghost and only got half the name out. Longclaw slipped from his glove and hit red snow with a dull thud that felt cruel. Melisandre watched from the edge of the circle, her red shadow licking along the snow. Not shocked, not happy, just waiting. For Jon, the world pulled away. The wind took his cloak like a mother pulling a blanket. Then it all went black.
Bring him,
Melisandre said, calm as a closed door.
to the fire.
Dolorous Ed looked like soup had been cancelled for life.
You're not.
I'll ask.
She said.
That's all I can do. Burning is for later if this doesn't work.
They laid Jon in the warm room by the kitchens. Ghost paced tight circles, white fur, red eyes, no sound. Melisandre fed the hearth a lock of her own hair and a pinch of something that made the flames jump and whistle. She nicked Jon's wrist. Nothing. Not much blood left to share. She nicked the crook of his arm. A slow bead crept out, thick and reluctant. Ghost licked the blood from Jon's skin with steady strokes, like he was cleaning a story so it could be told again.
Jon Snow,
Melisandre whispered, leaning close.
come back. There's work.
She spoke Valyrian soft and even, and the fire leaned toward her words like a plant turning to sun. People say Beric Dondarrion returned a little thinner every time. They say Catelyn Stark came back wrong and stayed wrong, all rope and rage. Jon didn't lurch upright. First, the cold woke in him, hard and mean. Then, the heat arrived, like a door of a furnace blowing open. Cold and heat pushed against each other inside him, until Ed stepped back without deciding to. Jon opened his eyes. The pupils were small, and for an instant there was a purple spark in them, like a dragon trapped within. His pale skin didn't recover, as if his blood decided not to do its job. He breathed in. It sounded icy. He breathed out. It sounded hot. Ed swallowed.
He's breathing,
He said, not labeling that as good or bad.
Jon,
Melisandre said.
no.
He rasped. His voice sounded wrong in a way that made Ed's shoulders climb toward his ears. Jon tried to sit. He couldn't. He tried again and did.
Where are the men who stabbed me?
some in the cells, some in their bunks,
Ed said.
some probably on the privy if they've discovered guilt.
Bring them, all of them.
You should rest. You died, Jon.
I'm done resting.
Jon said, and reached for Longclaw. The sword felt light, like something had been shaved off the world to make room for him. Jon couldn't stop the whispers, but the stark blood in him told him to focus on justice, and not the other voice screaming to burn them all. They brought the men. Bowen Marsh cried. Othell looked up and then down, and then, finally, at Jon. Wick Whittlestick tried to pretend he'd been at the wrong meeting.
I did what I thought was right.
Bowen said.
I did it for the Watch.
Then look at me while you answer for it.
Jon said. Steady, they took the yard. Brothers peered from doorways. Ghost sat with his tail wrapped over his paws, as if he were waiting for a signal.
No headsman,
Jon said.
In the north, the man who passes the sentence swings the sword.
You can't.
Someone whispered.
You're dead.
Jon turned his head a fraction.
Do I look dead to you?
Nobody answered.
Bowen Marsh, Othell Yarwyck, Wick Whittlestick, you broke your vows, murdered your Lord Commander, and left the wall weaker. In the north, we don't outsource justice.
He did it himself. Clean cuts, no show, no mercy. The snow drank it and said nothing. Afterward, Melisandre burned the bodies. The flames crawled low and mean, hot as a secret. Jon watched for a moment, then left the gathering without saying a word, as if he had unfinished work that needed doing. Melisandre touched his sleeve. He looked at her hand until she pulled it back.
My vows ended when I died,
Jon said.
We're going to Winterfell.
Ed's mouth bent.
A short walk. I'll bring my cheerful cloak.
Bring everyone. Leave your cheer. We're going to Winterfell for blood.
The road was frozen, and the wind cut through like knives. By the time Jon marched south with free folk, black brothers and a red priestess at his back, the nicknames had multiplied. The Ghost King, the White Wolf, the Knight's Justice. Not a king on paper, but winter doesn't read, and words spread fast on cold roads. Tormund Giantsbane grumbled, which is how he compliments.
I don't like what he is,
he told Val.
but I like what he does to other men. Puts a tremble in them, like they remember their mothers.
Val watched Ghost shadow Jon's horse.
Is he the same? The wolf looks at him like he can see an evil inside. Ghost looks cautious but loyal. Should we be worried?
He's the same as a sword is. When a spear breaks, the work still gets done.
On the march, Jon didn't waste words. He learned names and kept them. When a man fell and didn't get up, Jon carried his name in a way you could see, even if he didn't make a speech about it. That was the part of Jon that screamed stark. But there was another part of him, one without mercy. A part of him said, burn them all. Near a burned-out crofters' village, they met a Frey foraging party. Fat men on thin horses, faces like they'd washed in smug. They laughed when they saw the white direwolf.
Lay down your arms,
Jon called. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried like iron. Hosteen Frey puffed up and kicked his horse forward.
A bastard gives orders to Freys.
A bastard can bury you,
Jon said.
You'll freeze fast.
Jon sets his right foot, drives forward, and they crash together in a sword's heartbeat. There was little time to react. Jon decided on blood. The numbers were about even, but Jon had better men. And Ghost. Ghost came out of nowhere and dragged a Frey out of his saddle like a shadow in the trees. Ed killed a man and immediately looked like he regretted the inconvenience. Tormund broke a spear and repurposed it, driving it into the chest of a Freys young cavalry man. Melisandre watched Jon like she was witnessing the Lord of Light possess a man that was too far gone. Jon found Hosteen in the crush. 3 quick moves. Hosteen is on his knees, Longclaw at his throat.
Your house butchered my family at dinner,
Jon said.
You bragged about it like it was clever.
Walder's order,
Hosteen said.
not mine.
Walder will hear me,
Jon said.
but you're standing here and I seek blood.
He ended it clean. He burned the bodies. The justice in Jon left survivors to carry the right kind of stories home. At night, men gave Jon's fire a little space without realizing why. When the flames dipped, A purple pin sometimes lit in Jon's eyes, here and gone. Ed couldn't help himself.
Do you remember dying?
The cold, then a room made of light. No walls. Couldn't leave anyway. I heard the red woman, and a different voice, far away. A woman saying, "Promise me." Then the fire said, "Justice." And I understood.
You'll be terrible at weddings.
I was always terrible at weddings. Ask the Freys.
He slept with Longclaw in his arms and woke with old names on his tongue he didn't say out loud. He dreamed of winter roses in a stone girl's lap and a harp that wasn't his. Winterfell in deep snow looks like the land balled a fist and forgot to unclench it. The walls humped out of drifts. Smoke crept from chimneys and got lost in the gray.
Boltons inside.
Tormund said.
Northmen who remember their fathers and pretend they don't.
We're not taking the gate.
Ed guessed, hopeful.
We're taking the heart,
Jon said, and led them to the God's Wood. The weirwood stood white and watchful beside its black pool. No face carved, but it didn't need one. Ghost slid ahead. Roose Bolton waited by the water, gray on gray, eyes like quiet ponds. He looked at Melisandre's red and then at Jon.
I wondered what a red woman would fetch if thrown hard enough,
Roose said, polite as poison.
She'd fetch your fire,
Jon said.
You wouldn't like it.
You're supposed to be dead,
Roose observed.
Some orders get ignored. Ask the North.
Ramsay came late with a bow and a smile like a trap.
Is there really a ghost? I do like ghosts. They scream like everyone else.
Jon looked up and connected eyes with Ramsay. Jon's gaze looked more humored than worried.
It's Lord Bolton,
he added, so proud of a paper stamp.
You'll learn.
Not for long.
Roose kept his eyes on Jon.
You are a bastard,
he said, neutral as a ledger.
A bastard has no right to pass sentence.
A bastard has hands and a sword.
Ramsay raised the bow. Ghost moved like a roof slide. The arrow went wrong. Ramsay laughed his wrong laugh and whistled. Dogs!
Not yet,
Roose said without looking. Ramsay froze, annoyed to find obedience living in him. Jon lifted Longclaw.
Roose Bolton, you killed your liege lord at a wedding. You sold the North to a southern crown that can't find us on a map. You murdered Robb Stark and Catelyn Stark and broke something you didn't have the right to touch. In the North, the man who passes the sentence
swings the sword.
Roose finished bored.
Prove you're a man, not a priest.
Jon swung. Roose didn't beg. He died like he'd been waiting on a bench for his name to be called. Blood steamed on the snow. Melisandre poured something clear from a little flask. It caught with a tight, angry flame that burned hotter than it looked. The smell got under your tongue.
Not against the tree,
Jon said, dragging the body. They burned Roose in the open, where the wind could take some of him. Jon watched until there was nothing left to watch. Then he turned to Ramsay.
You took my father.
Voice trembling with rage.
I took your name. You can die with the other one.
Ramsay knocked again. Ghost smashed his aim wide. Ramsay whistled. Dogs! But the hounds froze mid-charge, heads low, ears flat. Jon said nothing. He just stepped forward. As if they'd caught the scent of a storm coming off him, the dogs peeled away and bolted into the trees. Ramsay stared after them, lost. Jon didn't slow. One beat later, Longclaw punched through leather and into lung. Ramsay gasped, tried to smile, and folded into the snow while Jon's blade came down a second time. Clean, final. He burned Ramsay. When the fire tried to taste the weirwood, Jon dragged the corpse farther off without anyone asking him to. He didn't talk. The work didn't need commentary. You know the words, "The North remembers." That's not a brag. It's a job. Jon didn't sit in the high seat. He stood at the scarred table in the great hall while men came in under wolf banners or with flayed men badges tucked away like shame. A clan chief bowed his knuckles to the rushes.
We know you. We don't know what you are, but you do the work when the work needs done.
An older lady said,
We'll follow a ghost if the ghost remembers our names.
Jon didn't correct anyone trying out Stark. He didn't claim a crown.
We're not done. The Freys are still breathing.
Jon sent ravens. He sent men. When the job was ugly and close, he went himself. On the White Knife Road, he stopped a Frey column at a narrow bend where the river squeezed the road. Their blue and silver banners hung limp like they'd given up. A young Frey nudged his horse forward, Arwood or Arnulf or any Frey. All jaw and no sense.
In the name of
the dead, lay down arms.
He sorted the Freys' men. He listened to each voice. Lies got the sword. Hard truths got bonds and a place at the back of the line. He took heads where he had to, took hostages when it worked better, burned what needed burning, and kept moving. At Barrowton, a quiet lord offered bread and salt and avoided the southern road with his eyes. Jon didn't humiliate him. He let the silence sit until the man had to breathe through it and choose. At night, Jon sat in the crypts with Longclaw across his knees. The old stone kings and queens watched the dark like they'd seen enough and expected more anyway. Lyanna's statue held stone winter roses. Jon spoke little. When he did, it was to the quiet.
You remember me, right? I'm trying my best to remember who I am.
Sometimes, Melisandre stood in the passage, a red coal in the dark.
You were reborn in fire. Fire wants its due.
The North tucked me in. We'll see who I belong to when I sleep.
Lady Stoneheart hangs men by the river. No speeches, just rope and vengeance. Jon wasn't her, but he rhymed with her. He judged, he cut, and he burned. He closed the wound after. Fire ends things that need ending. And he knew what winter would bring. When Jon heard Walder Frey still breathed, he didn't write a letter. He didn't wait on a crown. He went to the Twins, the towers that taught the North to look up at dinner. They swam a night river that bit like truth and slid in through a rotting sluice. Jon, a tight crew who liked impossible odds, and a red woman who treated darkness like a blanket. Inside, narrow halls and nervous men. Some Frey sons were fools, and some were just unlucky. Steel met steel in ugly rooms that weren't built for heroics. Ghost crept ahead, as if he were on a hunt. Melisandre kept to Jon's shoulder, like a second thought. They pushed into the great hall. The air still remembered the red wedding. Banners sagged. Tables looked guilty. Walder Frey sat in his high seat like he'd grown there. His voice tried for young and cracked anyway.
You're supposed to be dead.
I am, but I still pass sentence.
You have no right. You're no lord. You're no Stark.
I speak for the North when it's had enough. You broke bread and killed guests. There's a law older than your house about that.
You can't talk about law, boy. I am the law here.
Look at me,
Jon said softly.
Does this look like a court you can buy?
Walder looked. He saw the chalk-white face and the small, steady coal behind Jon's eyes that showed in the torchlight, and then didn't. He saw a ghost. He saw a man who wasn't here for bargaining. A man who didn't look like he was led by men.
Have mercy. Take the Twins. Take my house.
Your house is a trap with a dining hall. We're done eating here.
What followed wasn't pretty. Jon did it clean. No gloating, no speeches, just work. He left survivors to spread the right fear, blackened halls that needed blackening, and didn't knock the towers down because breaking stone isn't the same as building safety. The Twins stood, emptier and colder. Back at Winterfell, men tried a song. Jon didn't stand under it. He went to the Godswood, and stared at a tree that doesn't talk and a pond that says nothing. Melisandre watched her flames and spoke low.
You are winning,
she said, almost kind.
but the cold one comes anyway.
I know. I hear it coming.
You must burn more men. King's blood holds the cold back past the wall.
No,
You are a strange vessel.
I'm a small one, already full. Get out of my head.
She backed away as if it were her only choice. It's one thing to scare your enemies. It's another to scare your friends. Jon walked Winterfell's corridors, and men stepped aside because it was polite, and because something in them told them to. Ghost's claws ticked quiet on stone, the white coat stained with blood and soot. Ghost was familiar with shadows, but this was different. Sansa was a whisper in the veil, keeping her thoughts to herself and leading with justice. Arya was still a rumor with knives and faces at the ready. Bran was on his own mission, preparing the world for a fight with the winter. And Rickon was a secret with teeth. Jon wanted to reach for all of them. Every time he tried, one hand filled with ice, the other with fire, and there was nothing left to grab with. Ed stood next to Jon.
My lord, you've stacked the north like kindling. That's useful if you plan to light it yourself. Less useful if you're the part that catches.
I mean to keep us warm. If I burn, I burn.
That's a terrible sentence,
Ed muttered, which was his way of saying he'd follow anyway. In the end, Jon faced north again, because the story always turns back to the wall. He left strong captains, people who understood his short sentences. He left a fire roaring in the great hearth, and a promise in the stones that whispered, "I'll come back if I can." At the wall, he laid his palm to the old blue ice. It felt like a skull. He shut his eyes. Even after Freys and Boltons and burned banners, he'd never been far from this place. His duty lived in black, and he breathed in ice as if to say he'd burn every enemy to defend it.
She feels like she's listening,
Ed said, referring to the ancient wall as he's squinting up.
She's seen more than kings.
Melisandre's voice was small in the wind.
I see shadows beyond. Blue where there should be life.
I dreamed them right before I died, but now I can hear them coming.
He went anyway, beyond the gate, into the trees, with a handful who didn't need convincing, because he's a Stark and something else too. The thing no one really talked about. Under a bone moon, the dead found them. The cold had a sound like breath being pulled out of 1,000 mouths at once. The first whites moved wrong and fast, and steel clashed against dragon glass. The waves of these undead whites came in waves. During the fight, Jon opened the thing inside him like you open a lantern's shutter. His breath steamed with heat, as if the dragon inside of him screamed a language only the undead whites could hear. The nearest Wycott Jon's gaze ignited in red flame with a shriek that turned men's stomachs. Jon cut another, then caught its eyes, and watched as flame clinged like oil. They didn't meet a White Walker that night. Who's to say whether that was a good or bad thing? What I can tell you is that he brought fewer men back than he'd taken, and also discovered that the demon inside of him could devour these undead warriors with flame. Melisandre stepped into his path.
You are mine,
she said. Not cruel, not kind, certain.
No, I'm the North's.
And what of the dragon fire inside of you? I'm the one who awoke it in you. I am the reason you are here, my ghost king.
The North put me to sleep. Ask me again when I rest.
She bit her lip, very human on her.
You will need me.
I know.
He didn't add what they both knew, that he needed her already, that he hated that truth and would use it anyway. By then, the nicknames stuck like frost. The Ghost King, the White Wolf, the Knight's Justice. People like labels when the ground shifts. Names make it feel steady. In Winterfell, Jon spoke softly and people leaned in. He gave orders that tasted like medicine. Bitter, right? In the Riverlands, taverns hung Frey banners upside down as a private hymn. Along the White Knife, mothers told children,
"Be kind, or the Ghost King will come for you."
Half joking, half not. Southern lords put their ears to the wind and frowned at news they couldn't spell. Jon slept light. Ghost woke with every sound that whispered in the night, and with none. When Jon smiled, that faint purple pin in his eyes went away. When he judged, it showed. Men who loved him learned to live with both because both seemed necessary. One night he went alone to the crypts. He stopped at Lyanna Stark's statue and rested his hand on cold stone.
I don't know what to call you. I don't know what to call me.
He huffed a small laugh.
That used to bother me more.
For a second he thought he heard a harp. Maybe wind. Maybe memory. Maybe the price of being the man everyone needs and nobody gets to keep. At dawn he didn't make a speech. He just gathered his captains.
We ride north. We make the trees go quiet when they hear us coming. And we make the dead learn our names.
The sound men make when fear and excitement mix ran through the yard. Ed told a joke so dry it made a boy laugh instead of throw up. Melisandre watched Jon with something like pride and something like grief.
You will be a sword in the darkness, but you are not the only hand on the hilt.
I have two,
Jon said. He meant wolf and dragon, north and fire, boy and revenant. They rode under a sky salted thick with stars. The wall loomed behind like an eye that doesn't close. The gate shut. The snow began its slow work of covering their tracks. Some say they saw him later that night at the tree line. He lifted his face to a wind that didn't make sense and breathed it like smoke. The tiny coal behind his eyes winked out and came back, smaller, steadier. Not a blaze, a pilot light that refuses to die.
Justice,
he said into the dark. The dark didn't argue. If this were a southern ballad, I'd end on a crown shaped like a wolf's jaw, a sword that burns without fuel, and a lady with winter roses. But this is the north. Our endings are work left to do. Jon Snow died and returned different. A Targaryen-flavored Stoneheart with Stark judgment and dragon heat in the same body. He cut what needed cutting. He burned what needed burning. He remembered names. He walked toward the cold with a white wolf, a red priestess, and a purpose that outlasts comfort. And if you stand in Winterfell's yard when the wind knuckles the stones just right, you can hear the old words that work better than prayers. The North remembers. It remembers the traitors. It remembers the dead. It remembers what justice costs. And now it remembers this too. When real night comes on, a ghost with a wolf's shadow and a coal for a heart goes out to meet it. And the dark, for once, minds its manners.